On that note, welcome in everyone to episode 49 of the Count Us In podcast. My name is Harry Sermon, and I'm joined by the wonderful Jamie Joyner.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing?
We're well, mate. Good to see you. And also Matt Lacey.
Good evening, Harry. Jay, how are we all? Good, thanks. Hi, everyone.
We're well. And it doesn't end there. Our special guest for episode 49, all the way from the Isle of Man, Mr. Ed Wilson, everybody. Hello, Ed. How are you?
Hey guys, how are we all doing?
How you doing, Ed?
Good to
all
see
right?
you.
Hey, mate.
Good to see you. So, where do we start? Yeah, we've got Ed in for a special guest episode. If you don't know, which you should know, Ed owns, runs, coordinates, lives and breathes a shop on the Isle of Man called Drum Bass. It's more than a shop, though, isn't it, Ed? We'll get into that, I'm sure, later on. But it's more than a space to buy your drumsticks and beyond. So that's what he does. We all met at drum camp, Odyssey drum camp in 22, 23, 22?
Yeah.
I think Matt and we met at the drum show that year.
Yeah.
Yes, we'd met. I think we'd done a bit of an Instagram DM-y thing, hadn't we? And then we met at the drum show. Or was it through the patronage of another
that
podcast
was it.
we won't discuss?
The other drum.
Is that off? Is that we're not allowed to discuss other podcasts? I should probably.
Well, they don't discuss ours, so I don't see why we should. But yeah, and it was, I think, because there was a place came available at the Odyssey camp in 23.
That's right.
22.
22,
And then
yeah.
I DM'd you and said, "Oh, by the way," and then I put you in touch with AJ, and then
Right.
And then
So,
we
Ed,
all
your
met.
first was in 22. For
Yes.
some reason, I thought you came to an earlier one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
22. Okay.
So that's how we all met, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. 20.
that's
yeah.
the,
Me and Jay haven't been for the last two.
2. No,
Two,
you haven't.
yeah.
So we must have. I thought 22 and 23 were the last ones that we did, but it must have been 21 and 22 then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. God, that's a
Yeah.
long time
I mean,
ago.
AJ probably doesn't know your names now. Probably doesn't
Yeah.
know you are.
I saw him the other day and he was like, sorry.
Who are you?
what?
Who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he looked at me a bit strange.
Oh, he
I'm
rings me
joking.
every day.
You're already pre-booked for the next 5 years, I heard.
I'll probably be one of the tutors before long.
You ever get vacancy?
Do you get like a loyalty card if you get like 5 stabs?
Yeah.
Do you get the 6th one free?
Yeah.
I get another free practice.
I was going to say that, yeah. Another free practice pad.
But
Brilliant.
on that note, yeah, we'll talk about practice pads another day.
Yeah, that is going to be... We've teased it enough now already. 3 minutes.
Everyone's
of
dying
this.
for it now.
Yeah. So yeah, Ed, we've got a few obviously questions. This isn't going to be an interview, as it were. This is more of just a bit of a catch up, on a podcast, that people are going to listen to. But there are a few things that we want to kind of ask you and kind of get to know, because as much as we all catch up and see each other and so on, we've always got questions. Always got questions for each other. But we'll start with some nice quick fire ones. So first things first, Ed, tell us, how long have you been playing the drums? This wonderful instrument.
So I've got a very similar story to Matt actually. So I started playing drums when I was like 9 years old, and basically it was always about music for me. Like I tried playing guitar. I went through a whole myriad of things like cello, bagpipes at one point. I went through a whole load of things. I know.
Live.
It's and then
Which is
when I was
louder, bagpipes or drums?
they're probably pretty similar, to be honest with you. I think drums you can play quieter. Bagpipes, it's all or nothing.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I don't think the dynamic range of bagpipes was just really that. Mind you, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, that wasn't really a concern. So basically, so when I was like 9 years old, I sat behind a drum kit and it was just like, oh, this is the thing. This is the one. And I basically spent like 6 months convincing my parents, because it was my brother played guitar and it was his drum. I was like, oh, I'm going to sell my kit. So I spent 6 months just like going, we've got to buy the drum kit. You've got to buy me the drum kit. I want to play the drums. So I did the classic thing of like gathering things from around the house and like building drum kits, and like stole like their record player and like played along to like all their old Beatles records and stuff. And then kind of the deal was, I think it was like Christmas that year. So I turned 10 by that point. And it was like, okay, if we're going to buy you a drum kit, you're getting lessons, because we don't just want you hitting 7 shades of poo out of a drum kit. So I was like, fine, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it, really. That's all I did. Like from like the age of 10 till I was about 20, 21. Like I didn't do anything else. I just play drums. And, I started gigging and stuff when I was like 14, 15, joined bands. I went off, started doing like sessions and teaching and stuff when I was 17, 18, and then was in bands, signed, touring, doing all that stuff. And then kind of got fed up of it and a little bit jaded, and ended up going to university to study audio and sound. And then kind of just stopped playing, to be honest with you. And it was it was a weird one because I went to LIPA. So I was obviously like surrounded by incredible musicians. And I decided at that point it was time to not play music. So, I kind of did university, left university, and then kind of came like sort of the classic sort of weekend warrior. So I was working, I had full-time jobs all the time. And I sort of did that for about 10 years. And then, about 5 years ago, it was like, actually, I really want to get back into this, started doing more gigs. I'd moved over to the island by this point. Wanted to be playing more, went out, sort of sourced more gigs, was sort of traveling again, trying to do gigs. And then, sort of 3 years ago, basically went full time and did what I'm doing now. So that's the short version.
Yeah. Quite the adventure then.
Oh yeah. It's ongoing.
Yeah. Nice. Well, okay.
I should say, sorry, 9 years old was 31 years ago. I turned 40 last year. So the original question was how long, rather than just all of that. Yeah.
Your life
30.
story.
Yeah.
Actually put some numbers against that. So 30 years basically. I put up a thing on Facebook the other day actually, which was like, it was 30 years to the day of my first drum lesson.
Wow.
And then weirdly, a friend of mine tagged my first drum teacher in it. And we've been having a chat since. Like, this is mental.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Because I moved around loads. Like, I lived in Scotland. I moved down to England. I, been all over the country. So it was like, this is
It's Scotland
mental.
where you first started learning. Is it hence the bagpipes?
Yeah. So that was that was when I was
actually Brighton where the bagpipes came in.
Yeah.
Known for. Yeah.
Yeah, famous for it.
All the regional instruments in whatever country you're in. Yeah,
That's it. Got to find the right one.
So, we were talking about practice pads. We obviously like to talk about gear on this podcast, as all drummers, I think, mostly do. What's the like go-to stuff at the moment? What you're rocking? What's like the Ed Wilson signature setup? What's on the kit?
Well, you guys are going to be particularly jealous of this. I got an email today that I have a new drum kit arriving in the next few days.
I remember what this kit is. I'm very jealous.
I've seen a picture of it. Or a picture of
I
it.
just don't know how it feels to get an email that says you've got a new drum kit coming.
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, I've gone all in.
Have you printed it out?
But in terms of what I play, I'm not really a gear guy. I know that's kind of goes against what I've just hinted
Next
towards.
question, then.
Well, I kind of have a rule which is sort of comes in with the sort of the teaching and stuff, which is that gear isn't the thing. Gear isn't the problem. Whatever it is that you're kind of facing on the kit, gear isn't the problem, right?
Yeah.
I kind of make a point of going out and playing whatever's out there, just to kind of go, look, if it doesn't sound good and someone else can make it sound good, that's on me. But in terms of sort of preferences for my personal, and this is kind of I've got to be sort of as diplomatic as possible because I sell obviously quite a lot of stuff in the shop. But for me personally, I've got the Gretsch kit is the one that's coming soon, and cymbals of choice are usually Istanbul AGOP are my sort of go-tos. And the only reason it was actually I kind of fell into both of them, to be honest with you. It was never like I kind of had this vision. I went through the whole sort of the ropey Chinese kit when I started, and then I had a Pearl Export, and then it was like after that it was like just get whatever you can and you can afford. And I kind of accidentally ended up with a Gretsch, and since then it's one of my saddest moments because when we moved over to the Isle of Man, at the time I had like 4 kits, which is just like, I don't need 4 kits. I had like an electric kit and 3 acoustic kits. And it was like, you can't have 4 drum kits. You have to get rid of them. We're not paying to ship 4 drum kits. So I was like, okay, well, the deal was put them all up on eBay and see which ones go. And my Gretsch was the first one to go. I was like, no. I was gutted. So that's kind of it. So I say the one that's in the post is a nice new broadcaster, which can be very exciting. But that's going to live in here, and no one's allowed to touch it. And if a child so as much as breathes near it, they're going to be
What's the
sent into
like what sizes you gone for?
So 20, 12, 14, 16.
Nice.
So 1 up, 2 down,
Yeah.
So good.
which I've never had before. And for some reason I thought, well, why not spend an obscene amount of money on doing something that I've never done before?
What's an extra floor tom at like multiple thousands of pounds? You know, like,
Well, let's not say it too loudly.
well, you know, there is
my,
Google, you know.
my business / life partner might listen to this and I might get in trouble.
But the thing is, I like that idea because I'm never a 2 rack tom person, never have been, never will be. But 2 floor toms, always interesting. And also, I think the unsung thing about that is the idea of switching out which one you use. So like a 12 and 16 is always nice because sometimes I'm a big fan of the 14, but sometimes it just doesn't have that beef.
Yeah.
The 16, like you just have to like breathe and it's just got it, you know. So big fan of that.
No, and the other thing is as well, it was because my old Gretsch, it was just like, I mean, it was only like a Catalina maple, but it was the one with like the 2 floor toms.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be really upsetting because I got it in like 2009, I think I bought that, and I think I got it for like 350 quid new.
Like an OG one. Yeah.
Like it was so good, but it had the 16-inch floor tom. And what I used to do was I always just had a DW kick drum lifter, so I always had that as like a bass drum when I was doing like little jazz gigs. So my theory is that I could still use the 16-inch floor tom here as a little bass drum for jazz gigs if I ever wanted to, so I don't have to take the 20 around.
That's cool.
Or I'm just going to like down tune it and just do just that
Yeah.
whenever I walk into the room, which is probably more likely.
Yeah.
Love
Have
that.
you always sort of played that sort of setup, or has it been like influenced by some other drummers? You know, has it evolved over the years, or has that always been how you preferred to play?
No, good question. No, it was. I went from sort of the classic 2 up, 1 down for years. That was just what I played. And when everyone else was kind of going to 4 pieces, I was like, oh no, I'm going to keep my 10, 12, 14, and like just. I don't know what I was trying to do. I was trying to be different, buck the trend. I don't know.
All been there.
And then, yeah, I just went fully sort of 4-piece for the last, probably the last 15 years, right? So gigging and stuff, it was always, 2012, 14. And then it was a combination of 2 things, actually. I think it was, actually, funny enough, we talked about it before, the Odyssey Camp with Yost Nickel, because he plays 1 up, 2 down. And he and I were sort of having a bit of a chat and a play, and he was sort of giving me ideas. I was like, oh, actually, this does open up quite a lot of stuff. And then I happened to do a gig at a festival where the backline kit was 2 floor toms. And I was just like, yeah, this is so much fun.
Great drinks holder as well.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's going to be the most expensive table I've ever owned.
Beautiful stuff. And the same with cymbals, I guess. Like, is that kind of like always where, or do you kind of playing other stuff and find the right thing?
So basically, it was an interesting one, cymbal. So I kind of, and funny enough, actually, because you guys were talking about this in your last episode about cymbals and stuff, and I'm not going to go into it because I was shouting at the radio at some points when you were talking. I was like, no, you've got to do it like. But no, I kind of had a mixture of stuff. And when I was sort of 6, I mean, I had like my first kit I ever had, it just came with whatever it came with. And then I upgraded that and got like a Zildjian Scimitar Ride, which was horrid.
Nice.
I mean, like just so bad, but great. You know, as like a first upgrade cymbal, it was amazing. And basically, when I was 16, 17, I worked in a drum shop, and I kind of had sort of like, you know, dealer's choice. Anything that kind of came in secondhand, I was allowed to kind of take it away and trial it. And I ended up with a real kind of mishmash of stuff. And then basically, this was early 2001, I think. So I think it was kind of when Istanbul AGOP just came into the UK. They just got distribution in the UK. And basically the rep came into the shop and were just like, try these. And I'd been coveting a pair of 14-inch A Custom Master Sound hats for like 2 years. I was like, I'm saving up for them. You know, it was whatever it was at the time. It was still like 300 quid. I think they're like 700 quid now. It's insane. But I was like, those are the hi-hats. I'm going to get those. And then the rep came around, just like opened up his whole van of Istanbul AGOPs. And I picked up this pair of 14-inch traditional AGOPs. And I was just like, oh, no, turns out these are the ones. These ones. and because like they'd only just come out within the UK, like, you know, I ended up trading in like a whole, like I traded in like, you know, some Sabian Pros, some my Scimitar, you know, a Sabian AAX. Like I just kind of traded in everything that I had, and I got a full set of AGOPs. So I got like a 22-inch Ride, an 18-inch Crash. They're actually, look, they're these ones here. Look, you can still see them. There they are.
Oh yeah, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
You had them for like 20.
So I've had these for like 20 odd years, yeah. And it was, but I literally traded in all my symbols and just got those, and it was like a like for like swap. And then since then, it's like AGOPs have kind of been they're kind of my go-to. Like they're sort of my sort of litmus test for symbols now.
Yeah.
Because I kind of, you know, and you know, I think again, there's no bad gear out there. The one thing I really love about AGOPs is simply that if I want to go, they've got like quite a sort of mixture of different sort of ranges, but they all work together. So if I want like a traditional Ride against a Sultan Crash or a Turk, so hats again, which is what I've got, it's just like they just work. You know, there's you know, there's just such a musicality about them that they just work. So that was kind of, again, sort of fell into that. And yeah, it's kind of just been that ever since. So like when I go to like, you know, the drum show and all the rest, I'm just like, right, I'm going to go around and sort of give everything a fair sort of shot. But I always go back to the AGOPs and just be like, it's just one of them. It's just one of them.
What about heads and sticks? Like, or the kind of, because, you know, sticks has been a covered topic on this podcast.
God,
with,
it's controversial.
I
the boys
suspect
constantly, you know, changing and so
I
on.
suspect there's a rabbit hole with sticks because as a shop, and I want to talk about kind of the ins and outs of, because we all, obviously I'm very pro shop, and we try to tell people go to a physical high street shop and make the most of them and use them. And you know, that's one of the reasons we wanted to get you on, Ed, but obviously to understand a little bit more about the other side of the counter, literally.
Yeah.
But yeah, has that influenced, you know, what you've been stocking, or what you, in terms of how you're set up as a shop, has that ever influenced what you're playing stick wise? Or
Because I guess, like you were saying, you were working for a shop back in like 2001 or whatever, and you could kind of try that gear like as it came in, like before, like just as they get distribution and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess you still get to do that now. You get all sorts of things coming in and out of the door, and you can kind of go, oh yeah, I like that. I might, you know. Or do you do that or not really?
Not so much. I mean, I do kind of like, I get to kind of, you know, so, you know, a good example would be recently, you know, ProMark released the Larnell Lewis signature sticks. So, you know, it's like, well, look, obviously Larnell's an incredible player. It's like, look, I'll chuck a couple of pairs of those into the next order just to kind of get them in and see them, and just to kind of, you know, because with the signature sticks as well, it's an interesting one because it's like they're there because they, you know, you kind of assume they're there to fill a gap somewhere. Yeah. So it's kind of like, well, look, let's see what gap this fills. Is it between a 5A and a 5B? Is it between a 7? Whatever it is, right? And it's just like, well, look, I'll get them because ultimately, you know, I change sticks. You know, I mean, my stick bag is probably pretty offensive, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I've got about 30 pairs of sticks in there. And it's because I'm sort of trying stuff all the time. And it's also because I like how different sticks sound. I like how different sticks feel. I just kind of, you know, it's still trial and error for me. I certainly don't kind of get sort of, you know, advanced previews of stuff. You know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, the guys at the, you know, the big boys, as it were, on the mainland probably do. But you know, I don't get that. I mean, I wait until I'm at the drum show. That's why the drum show is so important for me. Because it's like it actually gives me the chance to do the kind of, you know, the trial stuff that then it means I can sort of have a curated list of stuff in the shop. R&D, you know, because
is that what you were doing this year when like last year?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, 100%. And again, it's just because of the nature of, you know, again, I'm on the Isle of Man. It's a small place. I've got a very small shop. I can only have a certain amount of stock. So it's like, I've got to, you know, it's got to be very, very carefully curated, you know, and it's got to be something that I think is going to be useful to people, because otherwise I just sit on stuff. You know, I made the mistake when I first opened of just kind of going, I want one of those because, you know, I think it'll look cool or something. And it's still there, you know, 3 years later, it's still sat on the shelf. It's like, well, I can't sell it now because, you know, it's, you know, again, sticks, especially because they get, you know, they dry out, heads start to crack. It's just like, you know,
do you kind of like, obviously like you've kind of got to sell what people are buying, but do you also have like a personal filter? Like, for example, and this isn't like the out like, you know, stuff, but like, say for example, like I think it's like the Nova brand, whoever owns the Nova brand, whatever.
Firth,
Like,
yeah.
So, like, do you stock a load of those because you know, like, loads of students are going to go buy them because they're like cheaper sticks, and maybe you can kind of get a few more on it. Maybe it's potentially inexpensive. Maybe you know that the quality is not as good, whereas you could perhaps stock like loads more normal 5As. Like, did you kind of filter through that way?
No,
or you know.
No, and partly just because of the numbers, you know, just
Right.
the actual numbers that I'm turning over. It's just, you know, it's if I was, you know, if it was a case of kind of being able to sell, you know, thousands of pairs of drumsticks to anyone, you know, anyone who just searches online to buy sticks and just goes, I just need a pair of 5A sticks. Like, cool, well, Novas are great, you know. And it's like, and obviously from a, you know, from a business point of view, there's probably, you know, there's high margins on them, whatever else.
Sure, yeah.
But, you know, I don't have that sort of, you know, I don't do those sort of numbers. So it's more about saying, what is it that people are going to, what do people actually want today? And if that's going to change because of things that are going on out there, it's like, well, then what's going to be the next thing that I can get people to kind of go, look, actually come in, you know, we're kind of talking about sticks a lot here, but it's like, you know, come in and actually hold these and just compare them to what you've already got, because, you know, they're just as good, if not better. And also, if nothing else, just keep trying other stuff. Like I said, like I think such an important thing is, and again, this is going to be about drumsticks a lot, isn't it? You know, such an important thing with sticks is actually like, it's the one thing that can, you know, I always say to this to my students, like, playing the drums is the weirdest thing in the world because it's an instrument that you never touch, right? It's the only thing that connects you to that instrument is sticks, and you've got to and you're going to change as you play, as you practice, as you develop, as your muscles sort of develop and all that. You're going to physically change. So just keep trying stuff, you know, and see until you get to a point that you're, you know, you've got your signature stick that ticks all the boxes. Well, then you're probably at a level where you're not going to change that much. You are who you are. For the rest of us, you know, it's kind of catch up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You know, we've talked about drum bass, Ed, and can you just give us some the listeners' context on, because we've already alluded to the fact that it's more than quote unquote just a shop. So what
it's a way of life. It's a state of mind.
What's your setup there in terms of what you do and what you're offering, you know, as without this being kind of turning out to be an advert.
So it's
just so everyone's got context of what your setup is.
So it's a very old school setup, basically. You know, it's kind of, it's very much in the kind of the mold of, you know, it's the small drum shop with teaching space, right? And as I say, it's like physically it's quite a small space. You know, I think the place I'm in now is, I think it's like 1,000 square foot, and I've managed to squeeze quite a few teaching rooms in here as well. So, you know, it's kind of, it's all based around sort of, in my head, it's all based around education, right? I mean, so one of the things about the Isle of Man is that it was kind of, you know, it used to have a music shop over here, and that kind of went away quite a long time ago. And, you know, there were people working sort of, you know, obviously music teachers, everything out there who were kind of going, look, here's the Amazon link to go get a pair of Vic Firth 5As, which is kind of where we all start, and that's fine. So it was like, well, actually what I want to do is get people to go, well, look, this is the difference between a 5A and a 5B. You don't have to order a pair. Come in and feel it and see what you think and see what you find. So the shop side of stuff is always kind of the extension of all the sort of the education, as it were. The idea is essentially, as I say, you know, I mentioned it before, it's about having a sort of a very sort of carefully curated amount of stuff. Like, say, just because of, you know, obviously the market size over here is very small, and it's like, what are people actually going to need? You know, so it's not like I'm going to have a whole load of, you know, top tier custom made kits lined up. You know, it's about, look, if you're just starting out on your journey, this is kind of the best you're going to get for your money. You know, and if you want to spend any more, well, then this is kind of the next step up. Then this is, you know, and this is kind of, you know, this is your 5-year kit. This is your 5 to 10 year. This is your 10 to 15. That's that. If you bought that today, you'd never need to buy another one, but you probably don't want to sink, you know, 1,500 quid when your little Timmy's only just had his second lesson, right? So it's kind of trying to sort of just give that opportunity to sort of see what it, you know, what the difference is, actually sort of tangibly sort of, you know, hold the stuff and go, oh, that's the difference between a, you know, a £50 cymbal stand and a 150 quid cymbal stand. This is kind of, can you actually feel it? Can you see it? Right. That's sort of it, really. And then there's the kind of the day-to-day stuff as well. So obviously, the sticks and heads and all the kind of the sort of the sundries. And then a lot of stuff is like, I do a lot of cables and things like that. So I do a lot with just kind of like audio cables, because everyone always needs like an XLR or a little 3.5 mil jack extender.
So it's
I have what I call my
well.
and now as well, because essentially, so just kind of just to give you a little bit more information for anyone that's interested and still listening, back in sort of January, we basically split the business in half. So we had drum bass was kind of the premises and the shop side of things, and then we've got music bass, which is the education side of stuff and the lessons and the events and things we're doing. But what I'm kind of doing is, I'm very, very open and honest about the fact that I don't really, apart from drums and audio stuff, which was like, say, my previous life and degree and all the rest, I don't know anything about guitars. I don't know anything about these things. So now that I've got the teachers coming in and I've got my guitar teacher, like, he is really, really knowledgeable. So I'm like, look, what do you want? What do you think our students need? What do you think students need? I'll work it out, because ultimately it's like, I don't want to be sort of, denying anyone else access to the stuff that I want to give to drummers on Island, of whatever age, whatever ability. It's like, this is all just part of our kind of, learning journey. And until you actually come and see it or hold it or speak to someone who is essentially a kind of a trusted advisor, well, then it's all just a little bit kind of, intangible in my head.
Yeah, sure.
It's really, we talked about sticks and we're talking about stock and everything, and it won't have escaped most drummers notice in the UK at least that there's a few drum shops that I've been in a drum shop where they're running down a certain manufacturer's stock because they're going to start stocking a different stick, and I don't know whether we should say or not. I don't know whether, it's quite obvious. People will be shouting at there.
Kind of old news a little bit.
Yeah, it is old news now.
But
let's
go find it if you want.
Bottom line, some shops won't be selling Vic Firth sticks anymore and started selling Vanta sticks. I mean, there you have it. So, well, I'm the other way actually, but So,
very happy.
On that note, Ed, of terms of stock and is there, just kind of layman's terms, what's the rationale behind some drum shops will now be changing the manufacturers of they stock, for example, just to give them some, because we're very pro drum shop and we say we want people to go to shops. And something that's always frustrated me, which I may have mentioned several thousand times on the podcast in previous episodes, is I couldn't get hold of a certain manufacturer's brand of drum head, and I've ended up changing heads. So how's that balance struck between what you're able to stock, how that comes about, and why you won't see certain brands in the same shop potentially? I don't know. Just to kind of give context from your side of the counter, when people like me are like, well, how come you've not got these in stock, and why don't you sell those? And why are you changing stick manufacturer, for example?
So I think, I'm happy to sort of talk about sort of my my sort of experience of it, and I can only kind of speak to that, because
quite right.
There are, but I mean, just to kind of, this is kind of the, it's not an open secret. It's something that we don't like to kind of admit and talk about as musicians and drummers and creative types. But at the end of the day, there is a big business in all of this, and there are big businesses doing what big businesses do, which is acquiring other businesses to expand their product portfolios and do all this kind of stuff. So, just to kind of put it into context, obviously the Vic Firth thing, which we're kind of alluding to, which I'll just come out and say it, ultimately the history there is, from, if we kind of remove our sort of, sensitive muso sort of brains for a second, and hearts, ultimately what happened is that Zildjian bought Vic Firth, a number of years ago. Zildjian bought Vic Firth, and, for a while they kind of just kept them separate. They were all one family in from a sort of a business head office, but they were very, very separate brands and all the rest. And essentially, obviously, the goal in any business is, especially with everything that's going on in the world in terms of, supply chain complexities and internet, various international tariffs and, international leaders doing things at the last minute. It's kind of, the rationale behind these things kind of being split up or consolidated and all the rest is purely that. It's purely business, and we have to kind of just accept that. Now, obviously, with the kind of the Vic Firth thing, it was basically if you had two brands, major brands, they would have done they would have looked at that and they would have gone, well, look, is it easier to move this one into this one or this one into this one from a distribution point of view? Because they essentially use third-party logistics and distribution companies to get their products to shops. Now, what you have, and again, I'm kind of very fortunate in that I'm stuck out on a rock in the middle of the Irish Sea. So I don't have any kind of direct competitors, but if you are a large shop in, city A, and there is another large shop on the other side of city A, well, then, they've got to kind of strike a balance there because, these both sort of stores have to have access to a certain amount of stuff to provide to their customers. But if that one's selling more of this and that one's selling more of this, well, then they're going to have to negotiate with the distributors. Go, well, look, we'll carry on selling your stuff, but we won't be happy if you go and start selling to them. And then you're going to lose our deals potentially because we'll just go and get someone else. And it's all kind of, it can get a little bit sort of, it's not nasty. I mean, it's again, and I don't like the phrase, but, it is a business, right? And and at the end of the day, people have got to get, products have got to get made, people have got to get paid, and things just are how they are. Now, in terms of the sort of specifically for me, I should say, one of the biggest things I sort of have to accept is the fact that I am just a small little box on a small rock in the Irish Sea. So I don't have any kind of buying power. I don't really have any negotiation power. I can't turn around and promise huge numbers and all this kind of stuff. And, and so the companies that I work with are the ones who, we kind of have this partnership where it's like, look, I'm very upfront and honest about what this is and what I'm doing and the numbers that I can sort of, I can get to. But it's then a case of going, look, it's up to you. But if you've kind of got a company where it's like, well, we're doing, we are a huge multinational company who's bought all these other brands. We use this particular distributor. There is a minimum order quantity. There is a buy-in promise from you that you're going to sell this much stuff. But then it's like, well, I can't do that personally. No. Other shops, other retail outlets can. So, I don't know if this is answering your question at all, but
I think it's just to give context to, you just can't go out necessarily and choose to have the brands that you love in your shop.
No.
But let's be honest, Ed, you as you've said, you can't also afford to have things on a shelf for 3 years. So you as a business have got to strike the balance between, well, I really love these in, but I'm going to sell one every 2 years. Whereas also I need to keep these in because I know all of my students love playing them, and and I guess it might be difficult. I don't know. Maybe it's not, Ed, but that process of selling what you love as opposed to selling the stuff that, well, I don't personally use this, but I know it's going to be great for my students at a certain level, for example, just to kind of give it.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, my kind of sort of elevator pitch to this is, and this is why I kind of earlier talking about, what do I play and all the rest. It's like, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about what I play. Right. But for me, it's a really tricky, it sounds kind of so sort of over romantic, I guess. But the thing for me is like, the drums existed long before I was here and the drums will continue to exist long after I'm gone. So all I'm doing is kind of, acting in service to that. So ultimately, if I'm buying something in, it's because I trust it, and I want that to be the thing, that's the thing that will give whoever like the best experience for them. Right. That's all I really want out of this. I don't just want to flog, people always come to me and sort of talk about, starter kits. And I go, well, look, my starter kits start at, the cheapest entry level kits that I sell are $4.99. Right. And I'll get someone come in and going, oh, well, I've found this on website, whatever, and it's $235. It's like, cool. Go for it. I know cheaper stuff is out there. I just don't sell it because, two things. I don't necessarily trust it. I don't rate it. I don't, this kind of goes back to my sort of old corporate life, Matt, and you might find this quite funny.
Yeah,
So when I used to work in kind of a lot of sort of customer servicey technical roles, I used to get in a lot of trouble with when I was a technical account manager for a while, and I had lots of quite big clients and customers. And one of the things I kind of said, which really annoyed my manager at the time, was, we'd go for the sort of the introductory meetings and all the rest, and I would say the best thing that could happen is that we never see each other again, and we never have to speak. That would be perfect, because that means everything works, and we don't have to, we never have to see each other again. That would be brilliant. My boss like, you can't say that, but I do kind of still believe that. I think, the best thing for me is like, you buy a kit and I don't see you again for 5 years until it's like, oh, he's still playing and he wants, and we're going to upgrade, or or 2 or 3 years and we're going to buy him a new symbol. Like that to me is kind of the key thing. It's not just,
even if the equipment fails, actually it reflects on you.
Yeah.
People aren't going to say, oh, yeah, it's a great shop, but I keep having to buy more stuff from them because it keeps breaking. No one's going to keep coming to buy stuff from you. So you've got to put your, I guess not recommendation, but people are talking to someone in a shop and they're talking to someone face to face.
You've got to build that trust as well. If you believe it and you sell something and it delivers, then they're going to be like, oh, great, I trust what Ed has recommended here. This drum kit's really lasted, but I'm thinking of upgrading my cymbals. Oh, Ed will know because this has been so great.
And I think that's the thing is, there is a, and again, this is kind of going back to my sort of management days. There is an economy of trust. Out there is, and the more that kind of gets, when it's one person, when it's me stood doing it, well, that is a very, very fragile thing. And whenever I get, and I occasionally get messages from people kind of going, oh, we bought this and this has happened. And honestly, like I've lost nights of sleep because it's like, I'm not gonna be able to get down to you to check that that's all okay. And for like 3 days, and I'm just like, I'm not, because it's, it's stressful, right? Now, obviously, if you're kind of a warehouse, big website, shifting thousands and thousands and thousands of boxes a day, there's probably less of that anxiety behind it, So,
well, they're not trading on a trust, are they? They're trading on a bottom line.
Well, it's a different type of trust.
Yeah, the economy of scale is that if they have 5% of their problems with customers or issues with their merchandise or whatever, then they're swallowing that in the efficiencies of scale.
Yeah.
Whereas that's actually quite a big deal to you.
I'm horribly inefficient.
No, but what I mean, but in a good way. But in a good way. Yeah. And I think there's so much, again, I am going to get my soapbox a bit for kind of just drum shops in general. That there's so much to be had from having someone to go and talk to and talk through stuff, and even us guys, all of us that know the business to a point and know what we like, and for people who are starting out, I used to say, I think my first drum teacher had a room in a drum shop, a tiny drum shop, and it was kind of, you walk past all the stuff to get to the and it's that people will just go for the bottom line now, and what we talked about buying cymbals in last episode, wasn't it, in terms of going to try stuff rather than just
super important,
finding a screenshot and ordering something.
Yeah, and it's a really tricky one. So funny enough, actually, I was talking to someone about this the other day, because I think it's such a huge, this is a topic in itself, right? Because, and again, this is me sound like an old man, the internet exists now, right? It didn't used to, right? So, the younger ones amongst us won't remember that, right? So
no comment.
But it's more wide-reaching than just the internet's available. I can go and buy something online. Actually, it's deeper than that. Like the thing is, we're bombarded with kind of information. If we follow drummers online, if we're seeing stuff, we're seeing that drummer play the 16-inch version of that cymbal. We're seeing that drummer play the 16 raw version of that cymbal. We're seeing someone else play the 16-inch whatever version of that, right? And it just goes on and on. Yeah. And the problem is like, well, then it's like you've got such these huge product lines that are catering towards a similar sized market, but people's expectations that they want that thing. Yeah. So where do you go and get that thing? Well, you can't come into my shop and see that thing because it's one of 1,000 things, right? That I don't have. It might be that you go to one drum shop and they have that thing. It might go that you go to 6 other drum shops, they don't have that thing. The temptation is obviously just to go online because then you can definitely get that thing, right? Yeah. So it's a really kind of, it's a very deep sort of topic of conversation, but I think ultimately it comes back to, in my head, it's like, well, I'm not, and I'm very kind of adamant about this. I get this all the time. Whenever I speak to suppliers, they go like, oh, one of the first questions was like, oh no, do you have a web shop? Are you selling online? It's like, no, because I'm not gonna, I don't want to get into that game.
No.
People are already winning at that game, right? And so therefore, for me to kind of turn up 20 years later and kind of go, hi, it's like, no. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah. The one game that I can play is the fact that I hold this thing so sort of dear to me, and I hold this thing so close to my heart, because when I was an awkward teenager, I went and hung out in the local drum shop, and I met my tribe there, and I was given advice, and I was told things, I was introduced to music, and it's more about that kind of, community sort of fertilizing than it is about just selling something, and to be able to kind of offer that. And for me, like I say, this is kind of all sort of done in service of that for me. Where it's like, look, I just want you to find this thing. If you found this thing like I found this thing, and like you guys found this thing, I could not ask for more, right? And that's kind of the sort of the dream, really. So so I guess really it's kind of it's almost kind of it's easy for me to say it, because obviously it's just me here doing this little thing. But I think for the bigger shops out there who are still sort of having to play this bigger game in this sort of this on this wider world, it does get a little bit tricksy. And all I would say to anyone, if there is something you want and you go to one shop and it's not there, don't just go online. Just try and find somewhere else, right? Because everyone that I've met in the drum industry, right? So when I went to the drum show in 2022, where we met Matt, that was when I was kind of going around going, look, I'm thinking of doing this. And I was just going around to every booth and sort of talking to people. And they were like, there was so many of them were just like, oh my God, you've got to come meet so-and-so. You've got to come speak. And it was just like, this is so cool. This is so nice. That's the point. If someone else could walk into a room, and I said this, I do a little bit of journaling every now and again. I'm very inconsistent. And I found my one that I wrote after the drum show in 2022. And it was like, the sentence I wrote was, I've never walked into a room of so many strangers and felt so at home. Right. And that to me is what a drum shop should be. That's what anything should be.
Like sums up the drumming community. For me, I think you see that across, like, when you go to the drum show. We've talked about a similar sort of thing at the drum camps, even just kind of the vibe that you get online on social media. I think you find yourself chatting with strangers and there just being this connection, this camaraderie, and I 100% feel, I get the vibe that that's what drum bass is like, when people come, and makes me want to come for sure.
Do it. It's really convenient.
We do a little counselling.
We'll do an episode
trip
from the drum bass. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Just do it. Yeah, just come on.
Not tonight. We're not,
yeah. I'll book the ferry. Come on.
Yeah. Book the ferry. I'm sorry, guys. I know I've been hogging a couple of the questions, but I remember going back to drum shops in the day when I was looking at all the shiny stuff. And when you didn't, when I'm young, you don't get all this, the business side of it. And I thought, oh, would it be really cool to work in a drum shop? And I'm like, well, maybe I just got fed up of drums if I worked in a drum shop all the time. And you can't sit and play them. You've got to talk to people and sell stuff. So, could you give us some insight, Ed, into like what a week is like at drum bass for you in terms of your Monday to Saturday? I'm hoping you have Sundays off. Maybe you have
Do your
Saturdays
earplugs leave your ears?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So what's the day-to-day or the weekly routine in terms of retail versus lessons, and how's your day plan? I mean, don't give us minute by minute, obviously, but what do you do what does someone who runs / works in a drum shop or teach in a drum shop do all week?
I don't know.
That question's coming on behalf of your wife.
I was going to say, I just try to look busy. That's it. So I think, and again, it's a good question that I have to be kind of probably quite careful about, because, so essentially I work 6 days a week. So I teach 6 days a week. I teach Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. The shop is actually only open Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays whilst I'm teaching. And then sort of Monday daytimes and Wednesday daytimes are my kind of admin / going out and actually speaking to people. Because, again, it's a small island. There's a small community. I kind of try to actually get out and meet people every now and again, without just expecting them to come up and see me. So it's an interesting one because, again, it's a small shop. I don't have hundreds of people coming through the door every day. So, it's kind of a case of maintaining sort of presence in people's mind a lot of the time. So, I'm not big on sort of, I'm not very good at social media. I'm trying to sort of get better at it, and just kind of balance the sort of the awareness of the shop. Like, I'm not very good at sort of saying, this is on sale now, come buy this drum. I'm not doing the sort of the advertising thing. So I tend to kind of, sort of mention things and then move on. But it's, I try to combine that with doing, actually doing some drum content. And I try to measure that with, this is something that I've seen, or this is something that, I think is quite cool, or this is something that I'm working on, and sort of just trying to do that. And that takes up a significant amount of headspace for me because I'm really not very good at it. But then, the rest of the time I'd say is lesson planning, and just sort of like say getting as much teaching done as possible. I think I've got, last count, I've got 48 students now.
Well, weekly.
So most of them are weekly, some are sort of fortnightly, a couple of sort of ad hocs. But then now also I've got the other side of the teaching side, so music based now with the guitar teacher, and I'm managing that sort of side of things and booking his students and getting them all sorted out and doing the financials and and then say I've got so what have I got here at the minute? Guitar teacher, piano teacher, singing teacher, saxophone / clarinet teacher. I've got another piano teacher starting in a couple of weeks. And I've got to manage all those diaries and all those calendars and manage the sort of, like say, the money and everything else. And that's been the hardest thing actually for me, just because it's like everything I sort of said about sort of, you walk into the shop and I'm here, you see me. And then because I've now got sort of other things going on, I sort of sit in this room here and I've got a sort of a window that looks into the shop, and I keep seeing people arrive and go and have guitar lessons. It's like, who are you? What are you doing here? But yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say is that I'm very, very strict with myself about taking. I've got I've got a young family. I've got two young kids, and I'm very, very strict with myself about spending time with them. I have to be at home for bath time most nights. I have to, on Saturdays, I only teach till sort of midday because I got to go pick them up because my partner, she teaches, she's a private teacher as well. She teaches on Saturday afternoons. So I go and get the kids, and I have the kids on Saturday afternoons. And then Sunday is like our one day because, my partner's schedule is pretty much the same as mine. Her only day off is Sunday. So it's like we don't do work. We just spend time together. If there's an exception, like we've got a show or a recital or something, then that's fine. But otherwise, it's like Sunday is
sacrosanct.
It's there. We don't give that up. And again, and this is partly my kind of belligerence from 15 years of working in sort of corporate world where, if you weren't going the extra mile, then you weren't going to make it. I was like, actually, no, because the only thing that's at the end of the extra mile is another mile.
That day's so needed as well, like that, just that time to shut off and not feel guilty about not doing anything.
I need
seeing the right people. You need that once a week. You need it.
I need to be better at that. I think I tried to book a rehearsal space in a week's time, and they couldn't do because they were closed that day for whatever reason. So I went back to the band and said, well, let's book somewhere else. And because that I couldn't do the thing I wanted to do, it made me look at my diary. And the last day off I'd had, so where are we now? It's the 10th of February. The last day off I had was the 12th of January. So I've done something every day, whether it's rehearse or teach or both, or have a gig.
Like that as
well. And I'm not great to go, no, today I'm not doing a thing. And so fair play to you, Ed, because you must have to fair play to keep that.
And I would say it's not doing a thing. Again, two young kids.
Well,
I've got an 8 and a 6-year-old. Yeah. It's not doing nothing with them. Trust me. There's a lot of running around playgrounds and finding stuff to do. But again,
but it's not work.
Yeah,
So
and again,
it's not business orientated.
Exactly. No, and that's such a key thing, you know, for me, especially because doing this is like, you know, and I say this all the time, is like, I could spend every waking hour doing something, you know, for this, and I just have to make sure that I don't, because you know I would knacker myself, you know. You know, and one of the things that's really important to me is you know, because it comes down again, you know, this all of this is, you know, it's because I love playing the drums. It's because I wanted, you know, I rediscovered that thing that was like, you know, this was, you know, 3 years ago, and it was like almost exactly 3 years ago. I was in such a, you know, not to turn this sort of into something that it shouldn't be, but like I was in such a dark, bad place at the time that it was like, that was, you know, drumming was the thing. It was like, this actually holds the key to something here. I need to do more. This is the thing that's going to get me changed. This is going to change my life into something that I need. Right. So, and it has, right. And obviously I'm very lucky and very privileged in it and everything else, but it means I still now it's like, right, well, dedicate the time to playing, you know, so I make sure that I get, you know, a couple of hours of practicing every day. I get time behind the kit every day just to sit and practice or play because, you know, if everything else, you know, if it all goes wrong, I can still do that. You know? So,
Still got that.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Cool, man.
I know you've sort of like laid out all of this, like what drum mix is at the moment, and I appreciate like we're probably need to think about wrapping things up soon, and but just to kind of add on to that as a final question, maybe if this isn't too much of a big question, what would be what would be like the dream, like where you see this going? Are you kind of, have you arrived where you want to? I know you sort of said you split into the two sides of the business sort of back in January. Have you got like a sort of long-term plan, or are you just kind of seeing where things go? Has there always been a dream, or is this kind of where you wanted to arrive? Sorry, I know it's quite a big question.
That is, I don't.
Great
do you know
question
what?
to wrap up on.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I've just been
Sorry, you're breaking up.
to ask it. Yeah, sorry.
Do you know what?
Direct email coming in is surely not
that's it.
where we all want to be. You know?
Yeah. No, do you know what? I don't. It's a weird thing. Like I don't have any kind of like. I don't have like a 5-year plan. I don't have like any of that. You know, it's still so kind of early on for me doing this. You know, it's been 3 years since I sort of decided to leave my previous life and do this. That I don't know what I didn't know what it was going to be then. What it is now is you know, is something else. I don't know what it's going to be next. And I think the main thing for me is that to me is the thing that makes it interesting. That's you know, I think this might be a good way of summing up. So when my last sort of inverted commas proper job that I had, I spent a lot of time with people who were working just to retire. And that was it. They were just every day. They literally said it every day. It's like, oh, you know, so many days to retirement, so many days to retirement. And I was just like, really? Like, there's got to be more to life than this, right? Do you not like, no, right? Yeah. So I kind of, when I started doing this, it was like, oh, actually, no, this is interesting because I'm now working so that I never have to retire. I don't want to, you know, I don't have to stop. I can do this for as long as I need to, as long as I can, hopefully, you know, for a really long time. And I hope that it's a success on, you know, lots of different levels. You know, it's not a financial thing. It's not a, you know, it's not a growth thing. It's not a market share thing. It's just, is this having the impact that I wanted it to have? You know, and can I maintain that? And that's what it is. And then, and again, whatever that is in the future, I don't know. You know, I think again, we kind of, this is maybe the sort of the midlife crisis coming through, but I think you get to a point where it's like, I don't know what anything, you know, I never knew what I was doing. I always thought I knew, you know, I got trapped in that kind of cycle for 15 years with jobs of going, right, work hard, get a promotion, find the job, get the pay rise, do this. And you got to the end of it, it's like, no, this isn't it. You know, it's just, just keep going then, just keep working, you know, and now it's to a point where it's like,
I'm starting to feel like that. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we can have that. We can have that. But that'll be the next
That's
episode.
the next episode. Yeah.
For sure. But I did, but it was funny, that was one of the big triggers for me was I had like a consultation with a pension expert, and they were like talking around. They was remarkable spreadsheets. I was really impressed with it all. But it was just like it was constantly it's like, of course you're going to be working for this long, and of course you're going to get promoted, which means your salary is going to go up by this much, and this is what we envisage for you, and blah blah blah. And by the end of it, you could be in line for like
Not as much as you thought.
like 25 grand a year that you get to, and it's just like
here's how much you lost.
yeah, it's like, do you know what?
Here's what you could have won.
Yeah, it's like, really? No, I'm good. You know what? I'll figure it out some other way. And the thing for me is, like I say, I talk about it a lot with people where we talk about sort of, I talk to quite a few people about sort of, what it's like to be self-employed and running your own business and all the rest. And it's like that thing of going, you always have levers to pull, right? Whatever it is, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, there is a lever somewhere you can pull to change direction or change tact or whatever. And it's like, the best plans in the world might not come to fruition. So you're able to pull a different lever. Yeah. Nothing is forever. Just get on with it, right? So I don't know is the sort of the short answer to your question. I said I could make it long, right? Yeah. So, but ultimately for me, like I said, I have this, when I started, it was like, okay, what are the measures of success? And it was like, well, obviously when I'm talking about students and getting people in, the measures of success, are they going to be, do they want to gig? Can I get them so they're gig ready? Can I get them so they do their grades? Can I get more? And it was like, actually, what's my measures of success? And my measures of success at the minute is I can do this. I can block a day of my week every week to spend time with my kids because they're going to get older and not want to spend time with me. Yeah. I don't want to sound sort of, again, overly romantic, but at the minute, I can't really ask for much more, but that's not going to, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop. As my partner will tell you, that's the worst feature of mine. It's like, I don't stop.
No, it's a real good point, and this has been a great episode and really insightful, Ed. But a lot of the stuff you talk about in terms of, again, we've got a similar story background in terms of our drumming, but we've also got a similar background in terms of our work life pre-drumming or during drumming and the corporate thing and all that stuff. So yeah, it resonates quite heavily, man. Thanks so much, Ed, for giving us insight and being open and giving us perspective on the world of drum shop and music teaching ownership. Have I said that's the right words? Wrong words in the right order. But
again, caveated with the fact that it is purely my own experiences.
Yeah,
and I'm sure if there was another drum shop owner out there, would give you a completely different perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's what it's all about. Hopefully, a lot of listeners who perhaps aren't kind of been to many drum shops or we understand the background of it. If people wanted to kind of find you, Ed, now I'm going to give you the opportunity to do some marketing stuff, mate. If people wanted to find you, Ed, where can they look you up on Instagram, for example, or maybe Facebook or wherever you have?
So Instagram and Facebook is at DrumBassIOM. So DrumBass BASE IOM. That's both Facebook and Instagram. And then Music Bass IOM as well as the teaching side of stuff. But that's where you'll find me.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Or drumbass.im. I forgot I've got an actual website now.
Hey.
Yeah.
You can't buy anything on it, just to let you know.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
I'm quite proud of it.
Thanks, Ed. Very much enjoyed having you on, buddy. It's good to catch up anyway.
Yeah, thanks, man.
No, thank you.
Done on drum camps and at drum shows, but it's nice to kind of touch base as well. In
touch
between.
drum bass.
So touch drum bass. Yeah.
There we go.
And maybe we'll all get over one day and we'll do a trip over there.
And are you planning on coming to the drum show or something like that again this year?
Oh yeah. No, I'll be over there. Because it's later this year, isn't it? It's in October.
Yeah.
So no, that was funny enough. Actually, I was hounding AJ about that because I was like, just any idea of dates for your thing this year? Because I'll probably have to start planning it now if I've got to be away 2 weekends in a row.
Absolutely, well, thanks, Ed, mate. Great to have you on.
Thanks,
Great
man.
to catch up. And
Thanks
appreciate
for
your
having me, guys.
openness and honesty and perspective. And it is your view of the world, which we fully accept. Thanks everyone. Well, some people accept. Thanks everyone for listening. You can hear and get to see us on Instagram at Count Us In Podcast. That's our handle on there. So we'll post some stuff about this and you can go back and look through some reels and drop us a DM if you've got any questions or anything you found insightful from this episode or any of the previous episodes. You can also watch this on our YouTube channel. So if you look us up on YouTube, Count Us In podcast on YouTube. If you look for that, you'll find us. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Count Us In podcast. There, I've done all the social blurb again, gents. Yeah.
Bosh.
Nice. Bosh. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate you being on, mate. And
thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone out for listening. And cheers, Jamie, Harry.
Yeah, guys. Nice one.
Until the next one.
See you for episode 50.
Ooh. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Well
done, guys. That's amazing.
Tie on or something. Right. Probably not. Although I have realised I'm the only
just
one,
a tie.
I'm not
Just
wearing.
a tie.
Just a tie. Yeah.
There we go.
I'm the only one not wearing a hat though in this episode, so maybe I'll.
Ed's the only one not wearing glasses. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
all good.
yeah. It's like a real life version of Guess Who. See you later, guys. Take care, everyone.
Nice one.
See you later.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.